Hey, Dooberteers, welcome back to the show. I'm excited for our guest today because not only is she from Licking County, running the Licking County Humane Society, it's a little hard to say, but her interesting fact is she's all about the Bassets. The Bassets, she's had 11 Basset hounds. She's done Basset rescue. And if you know anything about Bassets, I say they're kind of like giant cats. They love to sleep. Anyway, Jane, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm very excited to talk to you today. And yes, Bassets are my passion. I think they're probably my spirit animal.
There's nothing wrong with that, right? So tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about, your organization, and let's take it from there.
Sure. So I'm the executive director of the Licking County Humane Society here in Heath, Ohio. We're located on the west side outside of Columbus. So Columbus is located in Franklin County. Licking County is the county that's just to the west of Columbus. And it's actually the third largest county in the state of Ohio geographically, which is really interesting. It's a great county, very agricultural, but is growing. We're seeing a lot of industry move in. So we've got Intel moving in, Google, Microsoft, Meta. So it's a community that is experiencing a tremendous amount of growth over the next few years.
Interesting. Now, because I know when I looked up the size of Heath, right, about a city of 10,000 people back in the last census.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys support the entire county.
Yes. So we support the entire county with all of our services, including our humane agent services. So we service the county and then towns and cities within Licking County as well, which is really exciting.
Nice. Tell us a little bit about your organization, the size, the types of programs, right, the impact, all those things.
Sure. So Licking County Humane Society aims to be more than a shelter. So, of course, we have our traditional programs for adoption and intake, and we help shelters in southern Ohio when they're over capacity. We'll take in some animals from there, and we take in owner surrenders. We have our Humane Agent program, which is where we have our humane agents. They go out, assist in cruelty cases, neglect cases. So those animals are brought here as well. We have a full-service medical clinic, so we provide wellness exams, spay, neuter for our public. And then we also go out and do our Bright Spot clinics. So those are our vaccination clinics for unsheltered and low-income individuals, so that we are really focused on keeping pets and families together. They're all about preserving the human-animal bond here, which is really great. We also provide pantry services, so we have food pantry, and we partner with the Licking County Aging Partners and their Meals on Wheels program to provide food for individuals who are benefiting from that program because, of course, we want to feed the people, but we also want to feed their pets. We also have a thrift store, which is an amazing revenue generator for us, our Sophie's Thrift, which was actually named after a dog that actually she was a Basset Hound mix, funnily enough, that the staff fell in love with during COVID, and they named the thrift store after her. So that's also really incredible. But average per year, we're serving about 10,000 people and 5,000 animals, which is pretty incredible.
That is pretty incredible, particularly with all those programs. I mean, that's oftentimes people don't know that shelters have so many programs. And as you know, I mean, shelters are becoming really community-centric organizations instead of just a place to take unwanted animals.
Absolutely. I think one of the coolest things that I've seen shift in animal welfare during my 16 years in this industry is just the focus away from, I guess, blaming the community for the problem, and rather now we are including the community in the solution and working together and saying, won't you join us in being a part of the solution and keeping pets in homes and making sure that we're preserving that human-animal bond.
Yeah, as we all know, the animals do so much better when they're in a home, temporary foster homes, weekend outings, like just out of that environment. It's less stressful, they're healthier, their personalities really come out after a few days in a foster home as well.
Absolutely. Fostering is so important. What I always say is if, you're looking for a way to expand your kennel capacity, but you don't have the money to actually build more kennels, fostering is an incredible way to be able to do that and allow you to intake more animals. It'll provide a safety net for animals that are needing to recover from surgeries, medical procedures. I know of shelters that are using them as programs where dogs and cats can go into foster if their owners are fleeing domestic violence situations, if they're going into recovery centers, things like that. It's just foster has really become so important in animal welfare. It's something that I'm looking forward to growing here at this organization as well.
Very cool. Now, I know you've only been there for a short time, but you've been in animal welfare, you said, for 16 years. So let's hop in the time machine. Let's go back to when this didn't just become a passion, this became your career, this became your destiny and what you wanted to do. Tell us about that.
Sure. So it actually all started with a basset hound. His name was Toby. A friend of mine, I was living in Tucson at the time. I was in college. I was going to school at the University of Arizona. And at night, I was waitressing. And during the day, I was a full-time student. And a friend of mine was working for the Humane Society of Southern Arizona, which is in Tucson. And she knew my love of basset hounds. And she called me one day because they had gotten one in and he had been starved. He hadn't eaten in about 2 weeks, according to his owner. And I went down and he was the friendliest, sweetest guy, even though he had endured some pretty bad neglect. And I think I had about $200 in my bank account at the time. And I spent $150 of that on his adoption fee. Probably had no business adopting a dog at that point in my life, but I just couldn't leave it behind. Fast forward a few weeks later, they were looking for adoption counselors part-time at the shelter at the Humane Society of Southern Arizona. And I went ahead and applied and got the job. So then I was a full-time student, a part-time adoption counselor, and a part-time waitress. But I soon learned that this was the industry that I wanted to be in. So I worked for a while as an adoption counselor. And then when I graduated, moved up the ranks, became a supervisor and then a manager, then moved to Phoenix, where I worked for the Arizona Humane Society, which is an incredible organization doing incredible things. I learned a lot there. And as you do, I was doing adoptions there. I was being an adoption manager, and I wanted to learn all the aspects of sheltering. And so I slowly started gathering different departments underneath me because I would look at something and I'd say, I think I can do that better. And throughout my career, my life has been punctuated by these leaders that have believed in me and given me a shot. And when I've said, hey, I think I can do this better, or I'd like to do this thing. And so I had leadership that believed in me and let me do that. And so I continued to grow, added more departments under my belt, became the director of pet placement for them for a while, and then had an amazing opportunity to move to West Palm Beach, where I became the director of operations for the Peggy Adams Animal Rescue League, another really incredible organization doing amazing things. Did that for a few years. And then my husband and I decided it was time to move back to the Midwest. So I went to work for the ASPCA, for their Cruelty Recovery Center, which was also really impactful work, seeing large-scale cases of disaster and cruelty, neglect, and just working with those animals, seeing them come from those conditions was really impactful. But I'm really very passionate about local community work and seeing, the difference that we're making to people and individuals. And so when this role came about here at the Licking County Humane Society, I took a chance and applied, and I got the job. And it's just been, I think I'm on week 7 now, but it's been so amazing. And their previous director, Lori Carlson, was here for over 15 years. She did an amazing job, took this shelter from a small little building next to the animal control to now, it's a over 14,000 square foot facility that's doing a lot of good in the community. And it's an honor to be here. So I'm just very excited.
Wow. I mean, there's so much there. What a great story and what a great journey for you. It sounds like you said, I mean, you didn't start out in this, you kind of stumbled into it, for lack of a better term, but it sounds like you found your connection now. It found, your leadership, your experience, and all the things you've done. And now it's a perfect fit for Licking County.
Yeah, I think that you'll probably find that there's a theme with a lot of folks in animal welfare, in that when they were growing up, when they were a little kid, they wanted to be a veterinarian.
Sure.
Same thing here. I grew up thinking I wanted to be a vet. And then as I got older, thought maybe I'd want to be, a pharmacist because my mom is a pharmacist. And then I thought maybe I wanted to be a lawyer. Eventually, I landed on retailing and consumer sciences for my major, and then actually minored in business and animal science because I still wanted to do something with animals. And and ended up that course of study actually really benefited me a lot in the role that I'm doing now. And it was completely by chance. It was not intentional at all. I never thought that this is where my career was going to take me, but here I am, and I'm so grateful that it has.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, one of the challenges I've always, when I talk to executive directors like yourself, is how do you manage and lead a team in just a compassion industry that's so hard, right? You guys unfortunately see some of the bad side of humanity and bad situations. And how do you lead a team and focus them through that compassion-filled day to day?
Sure. I think one thing that you have to remember is that we see probably less than 10% of the people in the community, and you see the bad things. But the reality is that most things that are happening, most people are treating their animals really well. And you have to remind yourself to believe in the good in people, because most people are really good. So it's constantly focusing on the positive, on the great stories, the happy stories. I think it's also really important as a leader that you are communicating often with your team. Communicate, 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 and then communicate again. I think people tend to, if they don't have all the information on, a situation, they tend to make up stories in their head about what actually happened. And so just being able to communicate, decisions that are made in the shelter and the why behind it. And I'm the kind of leader that's, if my door is open, please come in. And I try to keep it open as much as possible. Just being available for your team when things are difficult, when they have questions, when they have concerns, I think has been really impactful as a leader, because people know that they can trust you and come to you. And you may not have the answer that they want to hear, but at least you've heard them. And I think as a leader, it's so important to listen to your team.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is important that transparency, that communication, that open door policy really sets the tone for how the organization runs, and also how the organization treats and respects your community as well.
Absolutely. I think it's very important to be available to your team whenever, they need something. And again, just to be transparent with them and be honest and invite them into decision making when it's appropriate.
Now, I know you guys have a lot of programs, so I'm curious, what does life look like in Licking County for animals?
It's actually it's pretty good here. We've got a lot of animal lovers in this community. We have tremendous support from the community for the Humane Society here, which has been really wonderful. I've received amazing welcome from this community, which was, not necessary, but so it wasn't, I guess, unexpected, but I'm just so grateful that I've had such a wonderful reception. But you've got a lot of animal lovers in this community. You've got a lot of people in this community also who are struggling with cost of living and cost of caring for their pets. And so we're here and we're working hard to try to fill that gap and bridge the gap for them so that they can get those supports that they need in order to keep their pets in their homes. But these are people who truly deeply love their animals.
I love that. Jane, what does a day-to-day look like for an executive director? I mean, people ask me all the time, I don't think I could do that, but I go, actually, you can. You just got to be really flexible.
Yes, flexibility is the key word here, because, you can walk in one day and everything is on fire. Not literally, at least you hope not. But it's just about being flexible. So my day to day really varies. But oftentimes I'm spending time meeting with donors. I'm meeting with staff members. I'm meeting with community partners. I'm looking at our programming. I'm seeing, I'm looking at our budget. I'm looking at where money is going in and money's going out. I'm discussing policies with our director of operations. I'm always evaluating what we're doing and if there's ways that we could be doing it better. Working with our marketing team on new messaging. How are we telling our story? Are we telling our story enough? What's going to make the most impact for people? That's going to move people to want to support us. So you're constantly shifting from one thing to the next. You have to wear a lot of hats, but it's a lot of fun. And I tell you what, it's never, ever, ever boring. And I just adore the work that I do. I think it's so much fun. And I'm so lucky to be able to do this.
I'm curious. I mean, if you had a time machine and you could go back to your younger self and give her advice, what would you tell her?
Have faith in people. When I started in animal welfare, I was very much of the mindset of the people are bad. We have to protect the animals from the people. The more restrictions for adoption, the better. And I've done a complete 180 on that because I've seen the impact that having restrictions has. It's not helping animals at all by holding them back and not allowing them to go into homes. I had a leader once upon a time when I was in his office crying about an adoption that I had just done, and I felt so awful about it. And I said, I just don't think it was the perfect home. And he said, Jane, there's no such thing as a perfect home. And that really stuck with me, and it stuck with me throughout my whole career, because there really isn't such a thing as a perfect home. But if that animal's going to be loved and, taken care of to the best of that person's ability, I think that that's a win. So I would tell her to be less judgmental and just to be open and to hear people and listen to their stories, because, your way of doing things isn't necessarily the best way.
I think that's really sound advice, right? I mean, we learn so much just through our experiences, and I mean, we're human. We all, even if we try not to, we're judgy, right?
Yeah.
We judge other humans. And I think it's really important and insightful to say there is no perfect home, right? My advice to people is find a reason to say yes, find a way to say yes. Maybe that animal is not the best one for certain reasons. But as you alluded to before, transparency and communication and saying, hey, listen, we don't think this is the best animal. Here's why. However, we have more than one, right?
Right.
Here are some other animals that might match better with your lifestyle, because you do want to help them create that animal-human bond, right? Shelters are not interested in animals being returned because they're not a fit.
Right. And I believe, I think that putting up these barriers, asking these millions of questions, talking to landlords, talking to vet offices, all that does is creates an illusion of control. We don't actually have any control over what happens to an animal when it leaves our doors, regardless of how many questions we ask a person, how many references, we try to get. We have no control over that. And so it's been our poor attempt, I think, in animal welfare to try to take back some of that control where there is none.
I believe it. I mean, I know you've only been in your position for a short while, but what have you learned in the last 7 weeks that you didn't know 7 weeks ago?
Just how welcoming this community has been, and how grateful this community is for what the Licking County Humane Society is doing and how much support we have. I think I've just been really overwhelmed by the amount of positive interactions I've had with people who, when they find out where I'm working or they find out that I'm the new director, are just so excited to talk to me about how their organization or how someone they know or how even themselves have been touched by what we do, which has been really impactful for me. And it just makes me even more excited to be in this role.
That's really rewarding and inspiring. And hats off to your predecessor, because she clearly set the tone and helped not only the staff, but the community. It's like break down those barriers, right? We are, I always say shelters it's kind of like a library, right? It's a community resource. It's not supposed to be, restrictions and all these other things. It's supposed to be a part of the community, and community needs to know what's going on, and they need to know how to help you guys to succeed so you can keep doing your life-saving work.
Absolutely. Lori Carlson, who was the previous director, I will say again and again, deserves all of her flowers. She did such an incredible job with this organization, built it to what it is today. Honestly, her legacy, it shows because of the positive associations that people have with our organization. It shows the work that she did and how impactful and what a great job she did. So I was very lucky. It can be a little intimidating coming into a role where with a leader was so beloved like she was. But again, I've just been met with open arms, which has been really incredible.
Yeah. No, I mean, it sounds like you've come a long way in a short period of time. You've learned, like you said, there's things that you inherited that she did fantastic. And there's probably things that over time your style is going to change, and the direction you take the organization and, the impact that you have on the community, all surrounding animals, but priorities are going to change. And that's where all your pivots come from.
Absolutely. This is a community, like I said, that is going to be experiencing and going to be experiencing a tremendous amount of growth. And so we as an organization will need to grow with it to be able to meet the needs of the community.
Yeah. No, and I love that community centric, that community focus is really important. So Jane, as we start to transition towards the end of our program, I always like to end with a series of questions just to learn a little bit more about you as a person. So really simple questions. You ready?
Yes.
All right, you got to pick one. Do you prefer puppy breath or kitten purrs?
Puppy breath, definitely.
There is something sweet about puppy breath, isn't there?
It really is. There's really nothing like it. If they could bottle it up, that would be great.
Yeah, exactly. Make it into a perfume or a body scrub or something like that.
Yes.
Are you more of an early bird or a late night owl?
Well, I have to be an early bird because I have to get up early to exercise and get things done before my 2-year-old son wakes up. So, unfortunately, I would love to be a night owl, but I have no choice but to be an early bird.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you've got a 2-year-old, he's going to make sure that you're up at the crack of dawn.
Yes, exactly.
What do you like to do after a hard day at the shelter to decompress?
I own a horse. He's wonderful. I've had him now for 8 years, and I've taken him all over the country with me. And so he's just my buddy. And if I'm not at work and I'm not at home with my husband and my son, you can find me hiding out at the barn and hanging out with my horse, which is really wonderful.
That is really wonderful. Very cool. I mean, I know you have pets, so if your pets were writing a Yelp review of you, how many stars do you think you'd get?
Oh, I think I'd probably get at least 4. I think my cat would probably complain that when she's snuggling up against me, I move around too much, and she's not happy about that. I think my dog would say I could definitely go heavier on the treats. But trust me, he does not need any more. He's probably a little overweight as it is. So I think that's what they'd say.
Yeah, they have very specific grievances, right? Like, so
Oh,
if they
yeah.
had the comment section on Yelp, it would be like, she's good, but there's some things
Yeah.
that she needs to really work on.
Yes, definitely.
If you had to describe the staff at your shelter in one word, what word is it?
I would say probably resilient. I think this is and it's not just here. It's every staff, every organization that I've ever worked at. I think that's one thing about animal care workers is that we are a resilient bunch because we do deal with some of the most difficult things, difficult cases. We see some pretty bad stuff on a daily basis, and this is hard work. It's fun, but it is very hard. And so I just think that the resiliency that the team shows here and at shelters that I've worked at is just inspiring.
I like that word. That's a really good word choice. And the final question is, what do you want your legacy to be?
I really just want my legacy. I want to be a leader that the leaders that I grew up in this career with were to me, which was a leader that allowed me to think of new ideas, to create, to try things, to pilot programs, and to fail, and gave me a safe space to be able to do all of those things. So that's why I'm the kind of leader that loves a pilot. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I want my team to have amazing ideas, and I want them to try things and, think of new things. And like I said, I love a pilot program. So I want to be the kind of leader that helps somebody achieve something that they had wanted to do or that they thought would work better that led to better outcomes for everybody. So I want to be that kind of leader, and I hope that that's my legacy.
I think that's amazing. I'm really excited to hear that. And I'm really glad you came on the show to share. I know you're new in your role, but I can see great things happening in the near future. So thank you for all that.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad I was able to come on.